if you could just
Yeah.
be as, open as possible and just share your experience and what was
Yeah.
like something that you took away, that would be so grateful because honestly, I feel like this is that program where I come back to all the time, right? Especially right now because there's just so much going on and it's like, okay, we have to have
Yeah.
intentionality with our energy, our senses, and take time for ourselves, plus have boundaries and still do all the badass stuff, right? So, yeah, like
Yeah.
if you want me to ask, like, what was your biggest takeaway? Like, what did you love the most with the program, your experience? Or if you wanted to just riff, like, let's just make it super
Yeah.
organic.
Yeah. So, first of all, you came to like on my horizon. I don't know
Mm.
for Facebook. I love your vibe and
Oh,
friended you. I've been stalking you a little bit, just binging content for a while.
yeah.
And the first like kind of, thing that I noticed about you is like how embodied you are in your branding and like your expression. And that's where our first episode was born, the first podcast that we did together. And then I kept, binging the master classes and I'm like, dude, this girl knows how to sell. Like I love it. There's no shame. It's just so authentic. It's like so like I've never seen that before ever, and I really have to rethink what I know about selling. So I'm like, okay, she's coming again. She's coming again because I
Yeah.
need to know. I need to learn, and I think I've seen people struggle with sales as well, and I'm like, she is so authentic in the way she's selling. There's like no fear, it's just celebration, right? I love that. So you came for the second episode,
Yeah.
and I was like, that's amazing. I learned so much, and actually, people loved it too. Like, I
Yeah.
still have people coming to the comment section, by the way, on YouTube. They're like, Alina's a powerhouse. She's amazing. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
that makes
having
me
her.
so
I've
happy.
yet to respond back to the comment, but it's insane. So people love you, and I do too. And so after that, I think you had a program. I think it was like you go first or something,
Yeah, masterclass.
and it a masterclass. Yes, the free masterclass. And I was binging that, and whenever something came up, I felt like, okay, this is so interesting. I'm learning so much. And then I think after that, like Goddess Code, it was like on, and you explained the program, and I'm like, okay, like when you said emotional intelligence, I'm like, oh my God, like she speaks my language. I need to know more. I need to learn more. Like I'm always like such I always want to learn. I love learning. I think learning is something that is just makes me happy, and like awareness is key, right? So that was so that masterclass that led up to the Goddess Code program was like, oh, she's speaking my language. I'm so in. And I remember messaging you because I was flying to the US before. I was like, hey, I'm in, by the way. I'm just gonna be traveling for like 3 weeks, but I'm in. So that's when I came in after I came back, and I was like catching up on the program. And oh my God, I don't even know where to start. I was so enlightened and sometimes triggered as well. I
Well,
think
that's
it's
good.
like,
It's okay.
but in
Trigger,
a good
trigger.
way. In a good way. Um, I think it was so expensive. It's expensive, not expensive. You know the other word. It was just it was the lessons, throughout the program, and everything that you talked about, and this literally happened to me in real time. And I remember like having issues with my clients that day, and you spoke about, how processing emotions, right? That I think that was of that day, like process our emotions and emotional intelligence, right? And I'm like, oh my God, like how is this so timely? It's happening right now, and she has a lesson for it, and it's just like happening in real time. So it was beautiful, and I keep going back to like so many episodes. I'm listening back to Boundaries again, and it came back again. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is still, there's so much, lesson, and the more I listen to it, the more it just come through, like different lessons and different takes, even the ones I wasn't ready to listen or hear
Yeah.
the first time. So yeah, it was
Uh,
amazing.
It's so funny. I have so many clients that join Goddess Code and they'll do the continuations. I always offer people like a small amount and you just keep doing it and you stay in the energy because while a lot of the content's the same, it's live, and I'm always bringing you stories, new expansive stuff, right? And then I'm adding bonus programs like feminine magnetism. You get to keep that. And I have clients sometimes are like, oh my God, like I needed to hear this thing, and then some things like didn't resonate, but they're like, a year later I went back and they're like, oh my God, you talked about the sisterhood wound and the motherhood wound, and then this happened and this happened, and it was like, I needed to hear it. And it's one of those programs where it's like, if you're pulled and there's a feeling, there's something there for you. And even if you listen to something and it's like, it doesn't resonate right now, I promise you'll have me in your ear being like, oh, this is why I was there and this is why I had to hear it. And even for myself, like it's the goddess is everything. It's the most important archetype that we have. You know, the badass, the CEO boss, it gets things done, you know, but the actual enjoyment of life and being intentional. And like right now, you're home alone. Like how many people are just grateful for life and are there in their senses and actually enjoying it? Because in your doing, you're not enjoying that, right? And then just the teachings about emotional intelligence, they're everything. Seriously, I feel like every single human should probably take a program on emotional intelligence. You know, mentioning about like, you know, having a business, things pop off and things happen, and there are projections, and there are people will vilify you sometimes, and people won't understand you. And something I talk a lot about in Goddess Code is like knowing that is like, is this moment of self-righteousness when you get really angry, because you're allowed to be mad, but will you still respond in a leadership way, in the goddess way, instead of being like, I'm mad, you literally just like, it's like someone shamed you on the internet, and you could retaliate, you can react, and because you have the right to be angry, but can you have the emotional intelligence to be like, I am angry, and I'm going to be angry, but I'm not going to go project it onto the world, and I'm not going to react. I'm going to be really responsible about this, and I'm going to process it, and then when I'm ready to respond, it will be in an emotionally intelligent way. Because as an entrepreneur and mentor, and you know this, it's like you say one thing, you react, even if you're right about it, it will ruin your reputation. It will ruin your legacy. It will ruin your whole alignment to everything that you're growing. And so even entrepreneurs, I'm like, the number one thing is to learn emotional intelligence, because you could build this beautiful business and legacy, and in one moment that you're triggered and you react and you say something, and even if you're defending yourself, even if someone's vilifying you and projecting, and you have the right, if you still react and say something, people will hold that over you forever. It will, your reputation, everything will precede that. So it's always a reminder of like, I am mad, I get to be mad, this is happening, but I'm going to choose to process this on my own. And then I'm going to still act like a leader and a goddess, instead of being like, let me go react and be angry and project. And so these teachings, they hold me throughout life. And even in my relationship, it's like, my relationships are so important to me. In my, like, you know, my relationship with Adam, it's like, this moment I'm angry, I have the right to be angry, he maybe did something or something happened, but I'm going to remember, like, okay, in this moment of self-righteousness, is it worth it ruining this relationship in this moment? Because one thing you can say, people will not forget. That's the thing. And the way I look at it is, I'm like, okay, I'm triggered, I'm angry, I know I need space, and I get to say I need to come back, and then I remind myself, like, how do I want to look back at this in hindsight? Do I want to be the one that also just, you know, when they go low, you go low, and we get into this fight and ruin everything because in one moment that you're angry? And so, like, just understanding emotional intelligence in life, in parenthood, in relationships, in your business will take you further than anything else. Because you know what? You can build a house, but it takes 1 second to burn down the house. Same with a relationship, same with a business. And in the times that we're in right now, there are people that are very triggered, and there's a lot of projections happening. But can you still be the one that's like, I'm angry, I get to be angry, but I'm going to process this anger on my own, and I'm going to lead myself like the goddess, the CEO, the mentor that I'm meant to be, and I'm going to keep going and leading that way. And that is everything, and it's been a game changer for me.
Honestly, I wanted to say this like throughout what you said, but the program saved my relationships, like my client relationships, my relationships. It saved my relationships, because had I not known about, you know, emotional intelligence from you and learning from you through the Goddess Code program, I would have been reactive, and I would have said things that I would have regretted in the moment because I was triggered. And now I got into a point where when I'm triggered, I watch my body. I feel in my heart race, you know, starting to race. I
The
feel
pressure.
Yes, I feel my face turning red, my pupils dilating. I'm like, okay, I can see this is, I'm being triggered right now. And
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in a situation where I'm being triggered, I can watch my body. I have that awareness of like, okay, this is a trigger right now. So this is not the moment when we're gonna say anything. We're just gonna be nodding and then process this thing. And then when it's done, and like you said, like I'm so glad you said that, the self-righteousness, because I feel like we go through this cycle, like we go like
Yes.
hurt and then we go to anger mode and self-righteousness mode, and then the goddess comes back to the wisdom. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
let's be adults here, and let's handle this in an adult way, but that takes time,
It
and I
does.
think it's so important for everyone to understand, and the goddess code really like that was serving that for me. And now I still have my clients, they didn't fire me because I shut my
That's
mouth and I
good,
didn't say
right?
nothing. I'm like, okay, we are
It's not worth
handling this.
it. It's
Exactly.
not worth it. And so, even with my kids, I often tell them like every emotion is so temporary. And we know that emotion literally means energy in motion.
In motion.
So even though you are so triggered, so angry, it's like this is going to pass. But do I want to be so self-righteous, even though someone did make me mad and they did something? Do I want to be self-righteous and burn everything down? And this is what we do, is we're so self-righteous. People have vilified us. They've done things to us. We get to, but the thing is it worth it ruining everything that you've built? And I see entrepreneurs burn everything down, marriages burn everything down one moment just because I get to be angry. So now I'm going to say something you will never be able to be forgiven about, because some people will not forgive certain things. Is it worth it? Is it worth your self-righteousness to ruin everything? So it's like, just notice I'm triggered. This could be linked to something in my childhood. This is why we talk a lot about the inner child that comes out and it's masking and clouding me. And so this is why I always say when emotions are high, intelligence is low. It's like we can't even access the goddess yet. When you are really heightened and emotionally triggered, you can't even access any wisdom. It's emotions are high, intelligence low. But at least if you can teach yourself the awareness of like, I have a lot of tension in my body, there's a lot of pressure, I can choose to leak this power, because this is how I look at powerful people in the world. They're the ones with the most pressure and tension. They're the ones that are the most projected upon, the ones that have a lot of expectations. So that's why I say if you want to grow a big brand, a business, you want to be a leader, you have to be emotionally intelligent, because the pressure and the tension of people's projections, expectations, the things that you have to hold are so high. But if you can do that and know that, like, I have this energy in my body right now, I could either burn everything down right now and destroy it all to be self-righteous, which eventually in 5 minutes, emotion's going to go away, or I can choose to be like, I'm angry, emotions are high, intelligence is low, I got to tell everybody, excuse me, time out, I got to walk away, I'm going to process, I'm going to remember the vision, I'm going to bring in the goddess, really process the emotions, and then I get to choose in a calm place how I want to respond to this thing. And that is going to change your whole life, because one decision and reaction burns the house, the marriage, the business, the legacy, the reputation, everything, your relationship with your kids. I've seen kids that still have not forgiven their parents for things that happened when they were younger. I see marriages break down in a moment, right? So it's like knowing I have emotions, they're temporary, I'm triggered, I need to have space, I'm going to process, then I'm going to remember what's the vision for this relationship, what's the vision for this business, this relationship I have with my client, do I really want to react and ruin it, or do I want to process and then have an amazing communication about it? And then understanding always in life, I tell everybody, I'm like, it's all cynical, it's all going to go away, it's all going to be processed as long as you take space for yourself. It's just not worth it to ruin everything for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to say this because you were mentioning that we have this trigger from the childhood wound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and what I've noticed is that when I'm triggered, it's not always the reality of the fact that's triggering me. It's a perception of the reality. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, when I had a client telling me or trying to cut my prices low or something, I would be getting triggered and thinking, oh my God, they don't see my value. Oh my God, like back to childhood, they don't see my value. Like, what did I do wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And coming to anger, like I'm gonna fire them. Like that's literally like the thought process, right? And then coming down to, okay, you know what? How about I take some responsibility in educating people what
Mm-hmm.
I think should be the solution here, and if whether or not they agree with me, it's not on me, it's on them. They might find someone that is cheaper or that fits their
Mm-hmm.
budget better, but it has nothing to do with me. And
No.
again, like I said, sometimes it's the perception that makes us reactive, that it's not even what really happened when we are like the intelligence is low, emotions are high, like you said. I cannot possibly go there to think about like, hey, am I investigating the truth of the matter here? Because then if I'm in goddess mode or in wisdom mode, right? Then I can ask questions like, did I
Yes.
really understand that correctly? Is this really what I'm perceiving is the reality? And
Mm-hmm.
not judge or prejudge or make assumptions. And I think that was so, so powerful as well in your program when you explained that to us. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just game changing when we understand this. Like it's just in everything, right? Like you see how why I love Goddess Code so much is because these lessons will make your relationships better, your romantic relationships better. They will make your business better, your client relationships better, every relationship. And if me and you had these conversations twice, like what's your business built on? What's the world built on? Relationships. It's a co-creation. Like we're co-creating here right now. You're co-creating with your clients, your relationship, your personal, it's all co-creation. Relationships, like it's the energetic currency of business. And so when you learn the skill of emotional intelligence, you know how to lead yourself, you know how to process emotions, and then how to communicate that really effectively, everything starts to get better and easier. We are the ones that even if people project on us, we're still leading our life. We're still the main character here. And it's like, okay, this is happening for me. I'm going to process it. I'm going to give myself space, and then I'm going to tap into my goddess and really, what do I really want to say here? What do I really want to do here? And what's a win-win for both people, right? And then navigating from that place.
Yeah, it's so, so important. And I love when you said, like, you got to learn to lead yourself. And I think self leadership is something that I also took away from the program.
Mm,
As I was watching you do it live, I think I had a profound understanding of what self led means. And
yes.
being self led and leading yourself, doesn't matter what day it is, whether or not you have a bad day or you have, some issues in your personal life, but still showing up and leading yourself through that. I think that was when it really clicked with me, like, oh my God, like self leadership. This is
Mm,
something I'm looking at self leadership. Like, this is it.
yeah. One of my messages from Goddess Code, and I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of people are like, can you please create one for like the teenagers and the kids? When they're ready, yes, I think this will be the program for them. But one of the things that I love about that program is learning to lead yourself in your emotions and in your happiness, and knowing that your life, like how it is and how you feel in it and your standards are a reflection of how you treat yourself. And when you don't have good treatment for yourself, you're not your best friend, and you don't really take radical responsibility for your happiness, it's like you give all your power away. And so even when and I will tell you right now, like there'll be more stories coming in my brand, but I am being so tested in so many areas of my life. I have hard things happening with my kids. I have a custody thing happening. I have another thing in my business. There's just a lot, and it's a lot of painful stuff. And I could sit here and cry all day and be like, everything happens for me. So and be like, Eeyore, Eeyore. And there's nothing wrong. You should take your Eeyore moment, be a sushi. I'm all about process emotions. But there's a moment where after you've cried, are you really going to sit there and be like, oh, poor me? Or are you going to play that victim card? Or are you going to be like, okay, it is happening for me now, but my happiness and my joy and the rest of my life is my responsibility. And so this is why in Goddess Code we talk a lot about also like when you're having those hard moments to take responsibility for your happiness. Like instead of, because this is what we do, we look for people. I'm going to get in a relationship so they'll make me feel better. I'm going to go do this so you feel better, when really it's like we have everything within us to make ourselves happy. I talk a lot about stimulation. So stimulating yourself into feeling good. If you're really low, okay, let's tap into gratitude. Is there anything happening around you right now? No. Okay, let's be grateful. You have a home, you have clients, there's people still love you. Yes, I have my health. Okay, then putting on essential oils and tap into that goddess mode. Okay, let me be in my senses. Let me take a bath. Like we have so many, and even free resources. Get sun on my face to make me feel good. Because from a place where we start to move on, like our emotion, on the emotional scale, we get to have that wisdom come in too, and what we need to do next. And imagine we lived in a world where we taught everybody from a young age, you are ultimately responsible for your emotions. It's not anyone's responsibility to make you happy. If you're depressed, it's your responsibility. Whether that means you get support, or, from someone, a coach, a therapist, or it's like, what do I do for myself to make myself feel good? And I list a lot of things, and I'll mention some. Sun on your face releases oxytocin, hugging, kissing, oxytocin, hug your pets, right? There's just these little things, exercise, go for a walk. Like, we have so much power to completely realign and restore our happiness and lead ourselves. But a lot of people, they choose to be in that place of like, I'm in victim mode, it's everyone's fault, I'm doomed, God hates me, everybody gets to have what they want, and everything's hard for me. And it's like, no, it's all happening for you, and now what? And then you go and you take responsibility to restoring that, that sense of like happiness again. Imagine we taught little girls, instead of chasing boys for that influx of oxytocin, it's like, girl, you can create that within yourself. You can make yourself happy, because, in Goddess Code, we talk about this, like the man that you end up with is the one that's going to be the best one because you were happy before you met him. If you are looking for a man to make you happy, you'll meet a man who can't hold that. He'll drop it. You'll be disappointed. But if you're the woman who leads herself, you lead your emotions, your happiness, your passions, you're lit up, then the man comes and he wants to elevate that. That's what men want to do. But they're not the source in all relationships, right? So teaching things like that are just game changing. Like for my teenagers are just like, oh my God, like I finally get it. I'm like, yeah, you make you happy, the right person will come and just elevate it. But if you wait for someone to make you happy, it's too much power for them to hold. They'll drop it, they'll disappoint you. And again, like if you can't be happy alone, this is where we struggle a lot in humanity.
Yeah. And I think I could add to this, even having kids, having children to make you happy or kind of fulfill some part of you, right? That's the same goes to that. If you're expecting your kids to be like satisfying some kind of unmet need for you, it's not going to work out. You're going to be disappointed.
Nothing outside of us will make us happier. And this is why you see a lot of successful, rich people. We were actually having this conversation in one of my masterminds a couple weeks ago about like celebrities and people who have it all, right? The thing is that they weren't happy in the first place, but they thought if they got the accolades and the fame, then they'll be happy. But they realized it's not the stuff. Yeah, that stuff will elevate everything, but ultimately, if you cannot be happy alone with your thoughts, there is no accolades, there's no title, there's no label, there's no person that's going to make you the most happy until you make yourself happy first. Like, we go first. And this is, again, that whole, see how everything all comes back together? It's like, oh, this is why it's all connected. We go first, and then everything else responds to us. And when things are hard, again, it's like, let me lead myself. This is happening for me. My emotions are temporary. Even like when life is hard, even when I'm going through stuff now, I'm like, this is like, I'm made from the fire. I bump into things, right? So a lot of my human design, it's like, there is like this awakening that's about to happen. Like the worst times bring the best times. Every ebb has flow. And so that's something to remember. Everything is like that. And it's just like understanding, all right, I'm in a fluctuation, I'm in a test, but in this ebb, there'll be flow again. And then there'll be like wisdom that will come, and everything gets better. Everything is cynical, guys. If there's one thing that is constant in the world, it's change. It's constantly growth. It's constant evolution. It's constantly shifting. Nothing will be the same, right? If you can accept that, oh, I know. If you can accept that on a soul level, it's like, okay, we're gonna be okay.